the editors of the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences asked me to write a commentary on a paper appearing in that journal. And this paper is about how we could, if we gave carbon credits for avoiding CO2 emissions associated with mangrove deforestation, that at a relatively low cost, like $10 a ton CO2 emissions avoided, that huge swaths of mangrove would be protected, and we'd therefore protect biodiversity. And so by addressing the goal of avoiding CO2 emissions, we can also meet the goal of protecting biodiversity. And so this is really great and laudable and something we should work on doing. But my commentary raises a host of issues that are both practical and theoretical. For example, there's an issue of governance, that if I pay somebody to protect land for some period of time, do we really have assurance that that land will be protected? Maybe somebody will just take my money and then deforest it anyway. Or maybe I am able to protect that one patch of land, but then people deforest neighboring land instead of my land, and there's no real net reduction in deforestation. So, and then I might be able to solve that problem. I'm not sure how, but then I'm only going to be able to protect my land for some finite amount of time, and so maybe after 25 years I'm done paying the protection money for this land, and then somebody comes in and deforests it anyway, and so more or less I've delayed the deforestation rather than avoided it. And so should I get the same credit for delaying a deforestation that I get for avoiding it? Or another issue is some land might have more carbon stored on it than other land, and how are we going to determine how much credit I should get for protecting which kinds of land? Another kind of issue is that if I were to deforest, or someone were to deforest this land, some of the CO2 would be emitted this year, but some might come out of soils decades into the future, and so should we count that CO2 emission avoidance for today the same way as an avoided emission decades into the future? And so all of these things represent major challenges, both theoretically and practically. Now, real accounting systems can use simplified approaches, and it doesn't have to be super accurate, it just has to work. And so maybe there are simple approaches, but the upside is that it does appear that if we were to credit CO2 emission avoidance from mangrove deforestation, that would, at relatively modest prices, like $10 a ton CO2, be enough to protect most mangroves and avoid lots of CO2 emissions. Now, an economist would say the simplest thing to do would be to just tax CO2 emissions, so that if somebody were to deforest a mangrove, that they would be taxed for that CO2 emissions, and that would solve lots of, or at least some of the problems I just said. But taxes are much harder to implement than credits for deforestation, because while sometimes sticks work better than carrots, it's a lot easier to hand out carrots than start whacking people with sticks.